Greetings, everyone. Welcome from Rialto Beach in the great state of Washington. I am somewhere close to the Quillette tribal community, as well as two towns that you may or may not have heard of: La Push, Washington, and Forks, Washington. Now, for those of you who have had teenage daughters over the last few years, perhaps you recognize those names from the book series and movie series Twilight. These two towns played an incredible role in those books, from what I understand. I've conducted peer-reviewed research on this and have found that La Push here is where the werewolves were in the book and movie series. So if you were part of what was considered Team Jacob, you were here in La Push. If you were part of Team Edward, which I guess was the vampire group, you were in Forks. Now, trust me, I do not know that without research. So welcome to Rialto Beach. It's a beautiful spring morning here, and thought I would get out and do some hiking this morning, and also do a video from this beautiful, beautiful location. So, ECBA 406, let's talk a bit about Lesson 4 in review, and then we'll take a look at Lesson 5 going forward over the next week or so. This week, the discussion question talked about outsourcing. Now, what I really had hoped that you would do in this is not just look at it from the perspective of an employee, thinking that, well, outsourcing is always bad because what it does is it costs people jobs. Well, companies do things for many different reasons. One of the reasons, obviously, on why they do things is they like to control costs. So if they're able to outsource some of the jobs that they have, or outsource some of the tasks that they have, then certainly it's going to have an impact on local jobs for that company. So that could possibly be one of the downside areas. But sometimes companies outsource functions, activities, because people are better at it than their company. They have a greater degree of specialization in those areas. So when I was at ConAgra, we used to outsource some of our work, not because we didn't think we could do it well, but someone had a better specialization in that area than we did. So quite frankly, outsourcing meant we increased our quality, not decreased our quality, because the experts who were involved and best in class, if you will, for that particular activity, we outsourced it to them. So I just wanted to make sure that you don't make blanket statements or blanket assumptions as you go forward in business, thinking that for some reason that outsourcing is always, always, always bad. It's not, and it's not always done simply for lower costs. Sometimes we would outsource things, the cost would go up, but the quality would go up as well. So just think about those as you go forward. The course project edition, this was a rather light week. You had a quiz, and then the course project really dealt with just developing a SWOT analysis. And again, as I mentioned in the last video, I tried to present some additional things in Lesson 2 and 3 for you to use other than SWOT analysis. But if there's one thing you walk away from in these courses, I would like for you to be able to conduct an accurate, detailed SWOT analysis. And so that's what I was asking you to do in this area, because from a training program perspective, if you begin to talk about the strengths and weaknesses, again, those are internal to the organization, and the opportunities and threats, which are external to the organization, that'll be very helpful for future managers to fully understand and to get your points as you're going forward with those. So that was the essence of Lesson 4. Now, moving into Lesson 5, we're going to be talking about all things HR or human resource related. And this is where it gets kind of tricky sometimes, because up until this point you're talking about business, you're talking about products, you're talking about marketing, you're talking about economics, but now you're talking about people. And this is where, if you're not careful, it can get very, very dicey. And so I asked the first question to really talk about corporate culture. In an atmosphere of change, and as you're trying to move organizations in your management positions into different types of activities, or maybe progress to new ways of thinking about things, you have some challenges, because a lot of people are stuck in the culture where they're coming from. If you bring someone in from the outside, which we'll talk about external hiring later, then sometimes you have to help them adapt to your culture. And then I also threw in the little ringer in this one. How would this be even more challenging in dealing with labor unions? And so I don't want you in this one to look at this as an indictment on whether or not labor unions are good or bad. Don't go down that trap. I mean, what I'm really looking for you to do is most organizations that are in manufacturing have some sort of unions, and whether it's on the production side or whether it's on the transportation side. So it's not about getting rid of them or keeping them. It's about how do you handle these type of cultural change issues when labor unions are involved. So again, don't turn that into a Republican-Democrat discussion on labor unions. That's not the intention there. And then the course project this week, again, follows the same course of human resources, where you'll talk about strengths. You'll talk about the strengths of the people you want to hire. I mean, how do you begin to look for those? How do you look at sourcing people today? How do you look at training people in environments today? And then finally, how do you look at retaining people? Because today, retention in the workforce is incredibly difficult. It's very, very difficult. And so those are all things that I would like for you to address for the company that you've selected for your course project and your training manager development program. Okay? Hope you all have a great week. I am here in La Push and Forks for a little while, and we'll come to you probably next week from another location here in the great Pacific Northwest. Thanks. Talk to you soon.